Hi, man. It's Jeff. Alan, I'm in my car. As you can see, I'm parked. I'm not driving. Okay. Um, it's early morning. It's about 7:30. I got up and I'm gonna go somewhere. And I saw a post on LinkedIn. I was kind of going through my LinkedIn stuff on my phone. What happened last night? All the things while I was sleeping, right? And I just saw that there were some posts about some upcoming webinars and stuff about Africa. And I know that Gala's doing an upcoming webinar about Africa, and then Localization World is coming up, with the next one in Africa. And I thought I'd do a little, do a kind of a talk. I'm not gonna. It's not a little short minute thing. It's not going to be a lecture. It's just going to be kind of personal testimony of Africa and African languages, and tell my background about that. So back in the 1980s, back in dinosaur Jurassic Park times, for some of us in this language industry, not for all. Um, I was well, I actually liked languages, language in general when I was in high school, which was 1970, junior high school when I was in 1970s. So French and Spanish, not and then in high school I got did did them again, and even as a teaching assistant in high school. Can you believe that? Just grading all the homework for the students. But I got an award for it in my high school graduation. So um, for being a teaching assistant. But in college, I did text analysis, comparative languages, and some Middle Eastern languages too. Um, so that and then in the late 1980s, I decided to do another degree, another bachelor's degree in French literature and linguistics. And during that year, that I did a 1 year degree for that second bachelor's, I decided that, during that time period, I decided I wanted to get into African linguistics. That was kind of the thing I wanted to do. I wanted something doing different, just really different. Um, and where there were needs, there were needs, and hey, there's a whole continent, so, um, but that's not the way it worked out. Um, kind of, not quite, but, um, so so in 1990, I went back and did an intensive training program in phonetics and morphology at University of Oregon and SIL in 1997, 1999. That was like intense. I mean, I could pronounce every sound and write it down, and you had to pronounce it, and you had to be able to pronounce every single sound, and you had to be able to hear and transcribe every sound that exists in the entire International Phonetic Alphabet for 9 weeks. And I'm not talking easy. I'm talking you're doing listening sessions every afternoon, had courses every morning. Intense, folks. Um, yeah, this wasn't just like a little semester course. Okay, and that was just we only like 2 or 3 courses that summer. It's just that intense. But that's why the program is really good. Uh, so it's called the Summer Institute of Linguistics. They make your summer a fun one. It's intense. And then did my master's degree, my first master's degree up in Portland State University, where I was teaching French. And I kind of decided to switch back and forth, switch over to linguistics from French, but I was doing both. Okay, so it was kind of double dual degree, master's in teaching French, but this linguistic stuff. And I discovered Creole languages in the middle of this. I in a sociolinguistic class, and I said, "That's what I want to do," because this is like I could go anywhere and do something. And so I got into Creole linguistics, and so the French Creole languages, because I was already in French, there was already kind of that whole thing. And there was some opportunities to do some things like language surveys and stuff in the Caribbean, and that part didn't work out. Okay, the survey work didn't work out because I didn't get the funding. I didn't get a Fulbright grant to go do it because I had too much overseas experience. Like this stuff, it all is intertwined. It's all politics, right? Um, but uh, but what happened is I went back to France, had another job opportunity to go back to France and teach and student exchange program and all that. But the but I went back to France, to Lyon, where they have where I was doing the student exchange. I was a student too, and I had to take courses in the university. And I wanted to do my master's to finish my master's anyway. So I did a master's in linguistics at the University of Lyon too, in the Department of African Languages. Go, wow, I'm getting to kind of get there anyways, right? So did that. Um, But I wasn't studying African linguistics. I was studying the master's program and thinking about doing Creole languages. And then I get pulled into French dialectology because I got a French dialectologist there. I kind of do that for a couple months and do that. That's really interesting. But it didn't take me too long to do this one, so I'm gonna come back and do the Creole languages. Pop that master's thesis off, put it off in like 110 pages in like I don't know 2 months or something. It was done. Just had to get that thing done. But during the summer of that year of 1992, I went up and taught for the Summer Institute of Linguistics in their French program because I had a French program in north of Paris. So I was going to make all the students go through the same stuff I went through 2 years before, but now we're going to do it in French. Okay, and it's not just translation here, folks. This is not just translating the course materials and stuff. You got to find all the course materials that are written in French to give to the students that are living in France or when they want to go to French-speaking countries, which are in Africa. That's where all the linguists are. They're studying in linguistics in French to be able to go to Africa, French-speaking Africa. So I had to find all the materials that are written in French, and they're about different languages that are written when people are written in English. Okay, and so I spent the whole year doing my master's degree, going to the library and finding all this stuff about all these things in French. I had to go teach all of the courses, all interest, every course you can imagine. Okay, to all these students that are going to go to Africa. Got to make it fun too. Don't want to make this boring. You want them to find their spot when they want to do. So that's phonetics, phonology, syntax, morphology, then syntax, and then semantics, and then pragmatics, and then psycholinguistics, and sociolinguistics, and all these istics things. Okay, and made it fun for them. And I can, many of the students did go on in 1992. Some of them have been working in Africa for the past 25 years. Okay, so 25 to 30 years. 30 years this year. 30 years, boy. So so I so I still never got to Africa. I was teaching linguistics to the students that are going to Africa. Um, and I was continued doing Creole languages, but that was studying some of the historical languages of slavery time because of in Senegal. So all of Morgan Dolphinus's work and all things he was doing, I was reciting the stuff that he was doing on the African linguistics part on the Creole language that went to St. Lucia. And so I was doing some of it as background work to be able to understand why we have certain words in the Creoles of the Lesser Antilles of the Caribbean, depending on the languages that the Senegalese languages and stuff. So, and all that. It's not just one. I mean, there's several languages. There was a whole mixture. That's kind of the context of the Creole languages in the Caribbean. I don't want to go into that whole, the whole slave trade thing right here. I'll do other videos on that. Okay, but so then fast forward a number of years. It's all these major international languages that put the food on my table, building translation systems, right? So for all the globalizing and stuff that companies want to do. But I did get to be funded for 2 years to work on the Haitian Creole, English Haitian Creole bidirectional speech system at Carnegie Mellon University. That was kind of a privilege to be able to do that because I finally got to do what I had been planning to do, at least for the Creole languages. And then fast forward a number of years, my wife and I ended up adopting a child from Africa, from Djibouti, Africa. He was 1 year old when he was a 1 year old when he arrived. But the thing and it was an association we went through, an association in France, or a lot of these adoption associations. And there was one that would specialize in children from Djibouti. So like every summer you go and they all get together and they have this little picnic for a day and all these 400 kids and all their families and stuff. What I'll say about that, and I think that's been another experience in itself. Is I'm adopted I feel like I'm adopted into the black community. Okay, so a lot of us talk about this, black. There's this whole, you know, it's this whole fight. Which should we say Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Don't Matter, All Lives Matter stuff? Hey, I got an African child, so this I don't get into the debate. I'm part of it. That's my life. I chose to have an African adopted child. So, and there have been times where I've had to, add some comments, had to flip it back at people, kind of like when people say, hey, when I'm doing job interviews for people and say, hey, you only know black, the directors of my co-directors at the company say, hey, you only know black folks. Yeah, I kind of throw a couple things. Hey, I studied African linguistics, and I did that. That's what that little title is in front of my business card here in front of you, and all that stuff. As I got a black African child too. But that stops everything. There's just no discussion, So, um, but the but what I learned too, being a linguist. Okay, I'm a linguist. I can do a lot of other stuff too. So I do a lot of things, and that's what makes businesses run and stuff. And got to be practical and pragmatic about things. But I'm a linguist at heart. That's what I am. And whenever there's a chance to talk about history and linguistics, I'm in it because I love it. That's my passion. But you know, KPIs are what put food on the table. That what keeps you going is your passion. Okay, so and and the thing that I learned in in having an adopted child, especially in France, I'm going to say that because it's different than in the United States. I mean, we had looked into investigating, adoption through the United States. It would have been a child from China at that point, during that period of time in the early 2000s, late 1990s and early 2000s. But for being in France, it's a different culture, and the French culture is into integration. Okay, I'll say it. I've lived through it, being integrated. You got to prove you speak French. You got to prove you write French. You got to prove everything. You got to prove and you got to prove that you're not from. You've abandoned your culture before, okay? Because you got to be integrated. I'm not saying that's bad. That's actually a strength because that's what creates a unified France and creates. But it's the valor of the Republic, the French Republic, and so so there's unification in the sense that there is not. France doesn't go through the stuff that the United States goes through. Okay, I'm going to say that. I grew up in the United States too, and I've seen the just the division among people. Okay, you don't really quite have that in France, and that's why the whole COVID period was very strong in France because people were able to be solidarity, folks. Doesn't really exist in the English language. It does, or if it does, it's a word in the dictionary, but doesn't quite exist. Okay, in France, it's one of the three key values. Okay, just it's one of the top values, solidarity. Okay, and so it really is. The French do practice what they preach, and they do it, and that's why the whole COVID time has been a very strengthening time for people to work together and to get through it together. Okay, so but the on the other hand, that's why I'm bringing it back to the African language part of it, is that when we adopted a French child or a Djiboutian child, he's got an Ethiopian mother. That's all we know. So we don't know anything more. This is one of these adoptions where you just can't know the parents and stuff. And given the color of his skin, and there's two military bases around there, we kind of figure out that one, where the dad is from. So don't know anything. There's just no info about that at all. So because dad disappeared like within, you know, mom went on and mom had the child. So um, but um when adopting the child through an association nonprofit that brought the children to France and had through the adopted parents. There's this whole focus on you need to get the child to be part of French culture because you're the French parents. But the problem is we're not just French parents. We're a bicultural family to start with. So we're kind of like bizarre to start with. We're working on French American stuff, and now we get an African child that we get in now. They says you got to try to get the child integrated just in the French culture. Well, we don't just do that. The child comes to our home, and I'm speaking to him English. Mom's speaking in French. French is the language of the home. We all speak in French together. But from the start, he's just getting this double thing. And so we weren't just this typical French only company, French only company. I use that word company all too much, right? French only family. We weren't French cultural and family. We're just like, hey, we're bicultural. This is what we are. And my wife had lived it 4 years in the States too. We lived there, so we both understood each other. So there was it wasn't just like in the States, you get a French person who moves to the States. Wow, you got to speak English, and so you only get to speak English. You don't get to use your home language and stuff. We didn't do that. We are both speaking each other's languages and understood that and appreciated that. So we bring this African child into this mixture. Okay, this is the real melting pot, folks. This is not the melting pot in the States where you say we're a melting pot. It's not a melting pot in the States. It's a melting pot, and y'all got to be the same soup, and you got to be the same thing, and y'all got to think the same way. But you want to say that you're all. I mean, it's not so simple. I'm just making some statements here. They're not simple. They require a lot of discussion. But I'm making some overall statements compared to having living in France, which is a very different thing, where you really do want it to be a melting pot in the sense that you need to respect the value of the French Republic, which is to be unified, which means you abandon everything. That's why all those local patois and all those dialects were gotten. They got all the kings have gotten rid of them and pushed them on. That's why they're all like marginalized now in France because they wanted to have a single French speaking culture, French, so that it was unified, that it didn't have all these divisions and stuff. There was a reason for this. So now, adopt an African child, and we're told that you should not emphasize his the child's background. Now they did have like photos and stuff in books, and they should get that, and there was a push for that. But there wasn't a push like you should support to really be really think about or talk about the the culture that the child came from, because you don't want the child. They didn't want us to. They wanted the child to attach to. They said you want to have the child attached to the culture you're in now, and not where the child came from and doesn't really remember and won't remember. That's kind of the thinking behind it, which is not bad, okay? Because then it does have the child integrate into the new home. But of course, it's into this new, bilingual thing, bicultural thing. Anyways, so um, so there's that whole thing. So we did that. We did speak, each of our own language. We did the one parent, one language, kind of the one language, one parent thing. Um, one parent, one language. I can't remember what it's like. The opal, whatever it is. You can see it both ways. Doesn't matter. But the but I never. Now I'll tell you another joke. Another anecdote too is when my wife and I we went on our honeymoon. Okay, so we choose to go from we were poor, we were poor student. Well, just I was a student. She had started a job working in a daycare center and stuff. So we didn't have a lot of money. So we go to Morocco, which is the closest place you can get to outside of France for plane ticket and stuff. So it's a pretty good travel thing. But my fiance, as we were planning all this to go, she says, "We're not going to go anywhere where you can learn the language. This is not going to be a linguistic camp for you when we go some for a week." She says, "I don't want you learning another language. So we're going to go to a place you don't have a time to learn it, okay? Because I'm just a linguist, right?" So she knew me. She understood that. So she said, "We're gonna go to Morocco because you can't learn Arabic in a week." Well, yeah, I'm kidding. I didn't try to learn Arabic in a week, okay? So so she said, "No way, we're going to the Caribbean, okay?" Because I was already. She said, "You're not going to the Caribbean because you'll make this into more linguistic survey work for your doctoral thing that you're still working on. We're not going to do that." So that's the background, okay? So you can feel now that when you have a child, um, my wife's not want me to learn his language because it's no way we're not doing that. So we don't want to be getting into his language because then you'll be talking his language all the time. You have another language to learn. So I'm not kidding you. This is we had to make some choices. Had to make some choices, family choices, stuff. If it had been my choice, I would have learned his language. And then I would have been speaking him in his language like the next year or 2 years later. I would have really seriously done it. And I'm that kind of person that will do that. So, but no, we didn't do it. Didn't do it. We decided to kind of focus on, the existing family cell and doing that. I kind of regret it right now, 20 years later, for some reasons, because I think that it would have helped him in other ways, because he did need that. He would have actually appreciated it. Now he's looked back, hindsight, it's always 20/20 vision. Um, I think it would have helped in other ways, but didn't do it because followed advice. And now, as I, 20 years later, I got my sons are older now and teenagers and all that, and now as I look back at the past 30 years, I'm thinking about just that. Now I see as African, there's a focus on Africa, which I've been talking about for 30 years. Now is just the African continent is like, some people say, oh, what language speaking Africa? Africa's not a country. You know, when I kind of joke with colleagues too, and we were talking. I remember I was talking with a colleague the other day. We were talking about uh, uh, some of the where people were from and stuff. And a colleague, it was a colleague in Ireland. We were talking about something. I can't remember all the details of what we were talking about. We were talking about some conflicts that were in Africa or something like that. And we were talking about, was it Mozambique or is it Rwanda? And where did that, or where somebody come from or something. I can't remember the exact thing. And I kind of joked, said, "Hey, is the person from Wakanda?" And he it took him about 3 seconds. And he burst out laughing on the phone because he realized that was, I was citing a movie and wasn't citing the actual country. But this is what we do, folks. This is um, this is part of social culture and things. And I'm laughing a lot because I think it's important to laugh, and I think it's important to take into consideration all the realities that are out there. Um, and language and linguistics is not a compartmentalized box. You don't just this and this and this and this. It's a mixture of a lot of different things, and culture and language and stuff, and history and education. You can't separate them from each other. They all are part of the mix. And I want to shout out to Michelle DeGraff. Michelle DeGraff, you did a thing at the Linguistic Society of America last night. You did a webinar, a follow up on the Linguistic Society of America, a thing where people didn't all get to come. They wanted you to do a webinar. She did a webinar. Michelle DeGraff, I'm shouting out to you, man. I'm going to tag you here. Yours, just great stuff you did. Okay, just I'm so glad you did it because you've been fighting for your country, for Haiti, for ever since I've known you and before. Yeah, you were doing this before, um, and we've known each other for 30ish years. But and I'm just kind of the white guy trying to promote your language and culture. Um, the white guy, and I'm always looking for people in Haiti and the Caribbean to take it on. That's really my goal. I just want to empower them and enable them to do that. And give you back that power from 1804, the liberation. I really want to give it to you guys. I really do. It's my goal. It's my goal. But I just got to, sometimes you have to make it, important and famous and kind of, unfortunately, I'm the one that gets the limelight because I'm the white guy doing it. But I'm really, I'm always trying to empower you guys to do it. But Miss, I want to say that the stuff that you talked about in that talk, that presentation, and the follow-up questions. And once Sally came on, Sally Coco, you came on, and my friend and started talking about, what is a Creole language, what's a pidgin and stuff. And I mean, I'll say I use the whole pidgin Creole thing. The pigeons, Creoles come from pigeons and stuff. I do that not because it's technically accurate all the time, but I do it to simplify and understand what a Creole language is. Now, that does give it a stereotype, but it helps people understand, you know, compared to European languages. It does help them understand a kind of a generic thing, and it doesn't apply to all Creole languages. I totally understand, like Lingala, and you can't apply it to the same thing. But I just say it's kind of a mixture of major groups and stuff. Just try to use the Bickerton kind of explanation of it. Um, but it helps to just understand the things that you were getting to, and what you said is that it's not a linguistic trait thing. It's a it's a um it's a socio-historical context, and that's true, totally true. But come bring that back out because that got in the Creole language, and we're talking to Africa. But um, all this is a lot of things that are, like I said, you take languages, culture, education, politics, um, and they're all mixed together. They're all make what is that language and language choice in a country or in a region or whatever. These things, they're sometimes not physical. They're not administrative boundaries that decide on these things. It's usually geographical boundaries that change where you speak a language or not. These are the realities. But so I'm kind of going on. I'm not. I don't have a plan here for what I'm saying, but I'm just kind of sharing my thoughts and experience about African languages and African linguistics. And what we'll probably find out here is now that my kids are older and I don't have to prove to my I don't have to prove anymore to whether I know could speak Caribbean languages with a rusty voice, because I do have that rusty knowledge, and that happens. It's kind of, it's hard to. I'll do another video about um the whole m- m- Creole culture and how they see their languages too. I'll do a separate video on that. I need to, but let's see videos. Each time I do a video, it gives me an idea another video. But the whole thing is there is this there is this um we cultural. I'll probably end up going into doing some African language stuff here in the who knows when. Um, Boy, we got to see if I got to get a Duolingo. I need to find it. Hey, Kevin Lenzo. Do we have African languages in that? I want him in Duolingo. Come on, Kevin. We work together. I want him in. I know Haitian Creole's coming, but I already know Haitian Creole. You need to do the Duolingo thing to tell me what level I got. I already know what level I got. I want some African languages. No, Swahili. But I did the Duolingo Swahili. I already did that one. Well, yeah. I need to give me the second one. Get the second one. I don't know. Yeah, but it's not hard. I'm kind of joking. Kevin, it's cool. It's cool what you guys are doing it over the Duolingo. Um, and for people that don't know Duolingo, it's the app on the phone to learn languages. So just go download it and learn some language on it. Yeah, it's good for what it does. So that's my thoughts for right now. Probably other videos will come out of this thing as I begin to think about it. But I did want to just emphasize the whole thing of adopting a child, having gone through that, and being told to not emphasize that child's language, the original home. I always say home country, but from where the child came from, okay, where they grew up for the first year, where they were born, physically born, and not where they were adopted into. And it's a big struggle because the whole thing of adopting a child and everything, and welcome the child into a European culture, which here was a kind of a Franco-American thing, but it's it has some. There are all kinds of things you kind of psychologically go through when you do this. You have to think about how you like. There are things I think about where I think about if I'm working on languages and stuff, and I pass it on to the next generation, but they don't really take it on the same level, what am I going to take it back? That causes this whole remembrance thing of slavery and the masters kind of taking over, and I don't want to do that. Um, so I'm constantly looking at how I can transfer the knowledge over and enable others to the next generation. They can do it. And I need their trust in them to be able to do it at least, to a certain point that I've been doing it. So it keeps the momentum, and it keeps the momentum, because if it doesn't keep the momentum, it's going to fall back and it'll kind of lose its opportunity on the global market to be visual and visible and stuff. And so there's a lot of that. And um, there's a lot of that involved. I'm being honest here, folks. I'm being honest. It's a struggle. And I struggle with this every day, thinking who can be the next people that we can invest. I'm not talking about money. I'm just that they're going to be the next generation that really take these things on and do it to a not a worse level we've been at, and getting the value of these languages and cultures at a kind of a global level, but do it even more, but at least the same level, but not less. Okay, that's and training them how to actually do that and how to fight for that too, but fight for it in a good way. And kind of like Michelle's been doing, Michelle Duraff's been doing, for, hey, Michelle, you're at MIT, so that really helps. I mean, that helps give some, you get some good leveraging there. That's really good. And to really make it so that it is, um, I don't want to say successful, but that's what I want to say. Successful doesn't always, it does has a different meaning for whatever you said, but successful means that we take these languages and cultures, and we all get that equity thing. They all get the same appreciation. Okay, same appreciation. Put them on the same level playing ground. And that's what I said I think in my Microsoft lecture, the Microsoft research lecture in 2010, is that when we put languages into like online translation systems or speech systems or whatever, with Alexa and Siri, or the speech to text, or in a translation system like Google Translate or Microsoft Bing Translate or Amazon Translate or Facebook, or when you put them with these languages into these online platforms, there's more discussion on whether or not they're a language or not, because they're in a thing with all these other major international languages, right? So once you put these in there and it gets taken, then people adopt it. They'll do it. You don't have to wait for don't need to wait for the political leaders of the country to actually make decisions to do things into, such and such language and this language of this, and get the leaders of the countries to be convinced that it's important. When you put it into the tools and let people use it, it's on phones. It's what the people want. It's democracy, and it doesn't matter what the leaders are saying. If the people themselves are convinced, because it's on their devices they're using every day, that's what's going to matter. Then that gives you the political leverage and to take it to and I've said this before, take the political leverage to the leaders in the country and say, hey, your decisions are just like, who cares? It's all the people are using it. So that's going to happen. So you might as well support it. Um, that's my pitching approach on it. That's how I do it. Um, and I think that's working, because I've been, in the discussion committees of stuff, and these books about we want to convince all the leaders of a country to, do the education of the country, and that just goes around and 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 around. Okay, the bush. Um, Not saying it doesn't happen, but it's a really long process. But devices, folks, put those languages in the devices that the people use every day, and you know what? That's faster because people are using the devices. So that's, I think, is the approach to do. And yeah, so it's not perfect in the device. Yeah, it's not perfect. The line doesn't matter. People are gonna happy to have it. You get them convenience to happen. This is sustainability. This is for development, stuff. And this is, and look what I do. Now we're announcing here in Microsoft Translate, all these languages to put, now we get some of the Canadian, native, Canadian languages, the Indian languages. Yeah, yeah, this is the way to do it. Get it in the systems, get it in the online software, get it in the stuff where people like to use it. And so this is where we're struggling with Africa. Coming back to Africa, we need more of those African language inside these online systems. Okay. So yeah, we got for Nigeria, we got 3 languages in like on online translators. Oh, we got now every person from Nigeria I meet or on LinkedIn stuff, I say, hey, you from Hausa, Igbo, or let's get remember that Hausa, Igbo, or darn, I can't from the third one right now. Yoruba territory, and they go, African, our languages? No, I just know the 3 names of them, and I had friends that worked on in college and university, so I know, yeah, I know what at least the 3 languages are. Or if anybody from Cote d'Ivoire, I didn't say Ivory Coast, but Cote d'Ivoire, I said, hey, do you speak a Bantu language? You know Bantu language? No, I just know what the range of languages are there. You know, you go to Senegal, Wolof, you speak. Well, hey, just know what the languages are. Just know what they are. So this kind of thing, we don't have enough of these languages, these African languages, in the online translation systems, in speech systems, speech to text, and all these things. Speech technologies, translation technologies. Up on the freebies, okay? We're not going to find them in the commercial ones because there's no business justification put it in those languages. I'm going to tell you, there's no business justification because and that's a whole political thing, because you choose to have English or French to be the one, okay? They're just not I won't put Haitian Creole into, I won't try to get my company to do it for our own translation system, for commercial purposes. Okay, maybe for research interests, but not for commercial purposes, because no one's going to sell the products to that country because they don't have money to buy a huge ERP system. Okay, I'm being honest, folks. There's just not business justification for it. But for research purposes and for sustainability, for that kind of stuff and corporate social responsibility, yes, I totally believe in it, but not for business. Okay, because that's not going to. No one's going to sell this stuff. I mean, I'm talking expensive products here, so I can't even buy them because they're so expensive. Okay, that tells you how much I make. But this is the more languages, the African languages that we can get is going to put them in these online systems for it. That's going to be the way to be able to give more justification to do things and to get into the uh, to bring awareness. And yeah, we don't have to have perfect, folks. And I'm telling you, online folks, all you folks that do these online systems, from having worked in low data languages, several of them, and have gone through them to collect the data collection, both speech and text, you need to not have to try to want to do the same level of perfection that you do for the other languages that have more data. Okay, and no, you don't need to have old people's voices that it can understand, and no, you don't have to have young children's voices for it to understand. That's what you need to do for the major languages because that's where you're going to be deploying that. But if it just works for all the university students, that and they got enough voices, those are the easy ones to do it. Then do it. Just do it and do it and make it happen and build upon it later. Just build upon it later. Uh, you got to be scalable in your thinking, okay? Because if you don't get the languages in, because you can't get all the coverage that you want for across all the different age groups and stuff, and all the men and women age groups and all the stuff for the speech part, hey, you're never going to get it done because you'll never fund the money to fund it, okay? So, because these aren't business justifiable languages, right? So if you can get pockets of data collections that are done, use them and just get the thing out. Do it scalable. Don't promise too much. No, that's my perspective. It's worked in the past, um, and it brought tears to people's eyes of their languages. Okay, that's what matters. When you got people crying because they're doing demo in their language, they understand. Hey, this is finally there, and they've been struggling for all their entire life, even for their own culture to even get any kind of visibility at all. That's where we know the rubber's hitting the road, and it's not just technology. It's not about technology, folks. It's not about technology. It's about culture awareness. It's about the social status. It has the same playing field, at the same playing level. Um, and so I need to stop this video because I'm going to go on for more time. You can see that the sunlight's coming out now, but the sun's coming out, and I just I could go on this for hours. You know, my rant. It's not a rant. It really is for supporting the languages. But I have no idea how I've been long. I've talking. I'm still hope you're all there watching. But it's that's where my heart is. And that's what I've been fighting for the past 35 different years. I guess that is. Um, so yeah, let's get these languages and these systems, make them people aware of it, make them people appreciate it, make it just awareness and support the people that are from these languages that are dying. A lot of these languages do die if they're not being used, and there's a whole trend to not being used because of parents wanting their kids to be able to access the more elite cultures and more elite languages, right? Okay. I'll make some other videos about that, but thanks for listening. Thanks for taking the time to listen to my video vlog of the day.